Okay, everybody, welcome to the Senior Counseling College Application Process meeting for the class of 2025. My name is Beth Walsh-Sahutske. I'm one of the counselors here. My other four colleagues are all online and are going to be standing by to answer questions as we go throughout this meeting. So if you have questions along the way, feel free to use the chat feature. And one of my amazing colleagues will jump in and share answers along the way. Also, we're going to be videotaping. I am so old. We're going to be recording this meeting so that we'll put it up on the website. So rest assured that probably tomorrow I can get that on the Counseling Center website. If you don't catch everything right now, you are always welcome to replay it or come back and ask us questions during school. So with that, I will get started. Today, we're going to do a step-by-step explanation for how the college applications process works. This is the same presentation that we gave to your students on Friday. The kids were very attentive, and I'm sure that they paid good, close attention to everything, but it's a lot of information. And so there still might be some questions in their mind, or you might have asked them some questions and it's a little bit confusing for them too. So hopefully by giving the same information that we gave to the kids on Friday to you, you'll have a good sense of how things go. So we'll talk about the opportunity to do some college visits, the value of community college, because I think that's one of those things that oftentimes students overlook. We'll talk about the timeline considerations in the application process, some NCAA considerations if kids are thinking of playing athletics in college, and a bit about gap year. And then warnings of financing college and debt. Mostly, that's for a student audience. I think our adults probably know about those things pretty well, but we'll just show you some resources that might be helpful on that end. Okay. So the first question is, where do I want to apply? And we encourage kids, if they don't already have a list of schools that they're thinking about applying to, then now's a good time to really dig into that research for different schools. So I have a link here, and again, when I put this slide deck online, you'll be able to click that and look at it, of just some different algorithms that you can use from different sites to do some college searching. And the idea here is just to kind of open up eyes to some other opportunities that are maybe not the first schools that come to mind when a student is thinking about their college and where they want to go to. Obviously, where maybe parents or families or siblings went to school are always the kind of the top of mind, or if they're watching, football games on Saturday and cheering for their favorite team. But there are just so many schools out there, 3,000 schools to choose from, and there's so many different options for kids. So we really want them to know that the right fit is there for them, and it may not be a school that they're super familiar with right now. We'll have representatives. We've already started having representatives visit South. And the way that they can sign up for that is on Naviance. So hopefully my screen pops over there when I show you kind of what that looks like. Kids can log into Naviance to their student page. And then this is what a demo student would look like. And down here in this What's New section, you can see some of these college visits that are coming up. And so you see the U.S. Navy is going to be visiting the school tomorrow at 9:50. Michigan State is coming on tomorrow at 12:25, and NYU is coming tomorrow at 1:20. So the way kids can sign up is super easy. If they wanted to go to Michigan State, they could just hit more info and then click that button to register, and then they will be registered to attend that. We do ask kids to keep in mind that they should register a day in advance, because we don't want them to realize they have something important going on and they don't really want to be in class, and so they just ditch out of it. So definitely have to do it at least the day before, and they're still responsible for everything on the class at the time that it's due and what they missed. So just some big visits that we have this week. I just put on there MSU and Naval Academy, Wayne State, and Western, but we probably have like 80 schools that are signed up to visit. Northwestern came last Thursday. American University came today. So we got them coming in. And the nice thing about these rep visits is that typically the representatives that are coming to South are the very same people that are going to be reading the student's application because we are in their territory. So if kids have questions about admissions or the school or anything, they're the perfect people to ask. Excuse me. Okay. College fairs. I'm so sorry. College fairs. Okay, so there's lots of college fairs. Gosh, sorry. Lots of college fairs available. And I've been putting them on the weekly information that we share out on Mrs. Schultz's e-blast on Friday. So, that's a good place to kind of look, but also just, searching online for college fairs. Online visits are always just, looking at the schools online. You don't get a great sense from looking online about an authentic feel for the place, but it will give you some good places to start. And then, honestly, our favorite is live on-campus visits. And this is where a student can really get a feel for, like, what does this place, really feel like authentically? What strikes them as really good and exciting and things that they're looking for? And what are the things that are not interesting to them or might actually be a game changer in terms of them not wanting to go to that school. Okay, so letters of recommendation. The first thing we always tell kids is just find out if you even need a letter of recommendation. The vast majority of schools do not require a letter of recommendation. So it's not like a default that everybody needs one letter of recommendation. It's a good idea for kids to look first to see if it's even needed. If it's in fact needed, they know one school that's going to require a letter of recommendation. Then selecting the teacher is probably something that they've already thought about. We gave them some suggestions about things to consider when they decide who they're going to ask. Probably a core academic teacher, probably somebody that they had in junior year, maybe sophomore year, probably not freshman year, because they're a different student now than they were as a freshman. And then this teacher is going to talk about who they are as a student. So it's a different perspective from what the counselors will be writing. And really, it doesn't have to be just because they're studying engineering. They don't have to choose a math or a science teacher. But they want somebody who's going to best represent them as a student. So obviously somebody that they've created a nice relationship with. Okay. Always give the teacher at least 2 weeks notice when they ask for a letter of recommendation, because that's just kind of, the teachers have a lot to plan. They've got a lot to do. These letters take time, and we want to give them the time to write the very best letter. And then they will request the letter via Naviance in the colleges tab, and I'll show you that in a minute. So it's very easy to do. Any current teacher at Grosse Pointe South is able to request via Naviance. And we always encourage kids, like, focus on the current teachers. I know some of them are wishing that they could go back to a teacher that may have left, but that gets very confusing. It's technically possible, and we can talk with them about how that would work, but it does get a little bit more convoluted. And then, just a good life skill. We always remind the kids, be sure to say thank you. Handwrite a thank you note that just says, I appreciate the time that you take. It doesn't have to come with any, significant fanfare or, gift cards or any of that business, but an authentic thank you note to say, I really appreciate you taking the time, is just a good life skill, and definitely something that teachers will appreciate that a student has done. Okay, so how to request the actual letters of recommendation in Naviance. Students go to Naviance and they go to the colleges tab, apply to colleges, and letters of recommendation. So I'm going to actually show you what that looks like. So in Naviance, this is what it looks like when a student logs in, right? And up here, this is the colleges tab. And then they would go in this apply to college down to letters of recommendation. And then because I'm I'm sneaking in as an adult. You don't get to see what it would look like for a kid, unfortunately. But your student, you'd see just a drop down menu of how to ask, which teacher is on the drop down menu, and then you choose general request, and then they write a quick note that says, "Thanks again for agreeing to write a letter of recommendation." And one thing I always caution kids about here is that they really want to make sure that they've talked to the teacher in person first before they send that electronic request, because as soon as they send the electronic request, the teacher will get notified via their email, and it would be awkward if they hadn't asked and then they get an email that says, "Thanks for writing this." Once the teacher gets that email, then everything is done electronically. It's really fabulous because then we are able to send that letter via Common App to any of the schools that the students are um, interested in, and then they're able to work their way through to. Ooh, okay, not seeing Naviance. Sorry about that. I'm just getting messages that you're not actually seeing Naviance when I go there. Sorry about that. So I'll try to stop doing that. But hopefully you are seeing the screen that has the presentation. So I'll stick with that. Okay. On Naviance, the students will see a link to the rec letter brag sheet. And many seniors have already completed this, but if the senior is interested in having a counselor write a letter of recommendation, then this is what they fill out in order to describe all the different things that they've been up to and what they're interested in and what they've accomplished and what they'd like to accomplish, so that we can best write our letters of recommendation as counselors. So it's not a challenging thing to do. Kids can always come back in after they've started it and add more to it, or they can, amend it in any way they need to. But this is really important for the counselors to be able to do our very best job to, support the students with a great letter of recommendation. And again, like, it's a good idea for students to give 2 weeks notice before they're expecting this letter to actually go out. So I encourage kids to think about that with their timing. Okay, parent input. Obviously, parents know their kids better than anybody else. And so, if you would like to provide some input to the counselor about some things that we might not know about, and that would be, great information to share in a letter of recommendation, we are very happy to get your input as well. We would always cite you in this. So we'd say, in talking to Mrs. Smith, I learned blah, 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 blah. We're not going to ask you to write a letter of recommendation for your kid. You don't have to actually do the letter, but if there's some input that you think might be really helpful in us getting a full picture of some of the amazing things that, who your kids are and what they do, we would love to have your input too. Okay, so now students are ready to actually apply to schools. And although this is a paper application and paper applications do exist, generally, I would say it's pretty much all done electronically online now. So it's a pretty rare application that you actually print out a letter. And October is our college application month, and so that's a perfect time if students are getting prepared to send their applications in, to get free applications for an awful lot of schools. So we'll talk about that a lot when we get closer to October. One of my favorite ones that I like to mention is that we get so many kids applying to Michigan State University, and Michigan State always has a week that they do free applications. You don't need to qualify. You just need a code, and we will get that code and share that out as soon as we do, when we get to October. So if a student knows that they're going to be applying to Michigan State, save $75 and definitely get that code. Most schools aren't quite that expensive. I'd say some of the highly competitive schools are that expensive, but most schools are less than that and or free. And so we try to make this as accessible as we possibly can. So Common App, hopefully you've heard about that before. If you haven't, then Common App is like a uniform college application. It is a generic application, so it's not any one college that has Common App. And then they have over 1,000 colleges that say, yes, we'll take the Common App, so that students can just fill out one application and then shoot it to a variety of different colleges. So in our neck of the woods, that would include U of M, MSU, Wayne State, Kalamazoo, Miami, Albion, Western, Eastern. I mean, nearly everywhere takes the Common App. And so it can really be a real efficiency saver. As kids are filling out their Common App, I have a few things that are just good to know. I'm not going to read them to you because you have them there and you can always reference them. But what it is you can see that there's just a lot of generic information that every school asks the same thing. And so to save on time and be efficient, the student really just fills it out once and then sends it to a variety of schools. If there's a fee for the school, then you're still going to have an individual fee for each school. And again, we often need to get codes for free applications. And so it's worth checking with us to see if there's a code available. We, of course, will always send out that information as well. Probably on those weekly e-blasts is a time that I do it a lot. If a student is doing Common App, which I think the vast majority of them will, what they have to do is match their Common App with their Naviance account so that they talk to each other. And there's information there and a little video to follow so that students see how to match their Common App account with their Naviance account. All right. So standardized test scores, and by and large, I'd say, following the world experiencing COVID, so many schools decided to go test optional with their standardized test scores. And some of them are changing back now to be required, but I'd still say that probably the majority of them are optional. I have a link there that you'll be able to click to see the Michigan school test requirements and also nationally. So this is really an opportunity for families and students to be strategic to decide if the score that they have is going to be helpful for them in their college admissions, or if it's not helpful, don't use it. Using the information on Naviance that we have for admissions based on GPA and test score is a real helpful way to get a sense of what students in the past at Grosse Pointe South have been admitted or denied or waitlisted with different test scores. So that's a good sort of to get a benchmark of what we're talking about. They also have data for ACT, and either test score is completely fine. When it comes to standardized testing, we don't have any of these test scores in any information that we share with the schools. It's not on a student's transcript, and it's not on anything that we send. And we do that on purpose because we want the families to make the decision about what, if any, test scores that they will share. You can choose to just share one test score. You could choose to share multiple test scores. If a school super scores, then maybe they will cherry pick out the subtests that are higher in multiple different scoring sessions to get sort of what would be their ultimate composite score. Schools are very transparent about if they super score. So again, you can decide school by school whether you want to include a standardized test score. If a student does want to send their standardized test scores, then they have to go directly to the collegeboard.org or act.org to decide what scores they're going to send and to put that order in. Because we don't want to make a choice for them and have them change their mind. Okay, finally, after the student has applied to school and they've completed their application, the last thing they need to do is notify us at South so that we know that they have applied to the school. To this point, certainly they know that they've applied, and you probably know because, maybe you gave them a credit card or, you've been part of talking them through the process. But the counselors won't know until they fill out this form to let us know, okay, I have put my application into Western and now I need you to do your part. So we have a link to the college application notification form in many different places. It is on the counseling website. Right at the top, you'll see the highlighting and the link right there. They're also available on some counselors' Schoology pages. So, or just, send a note to the counselor and say, can you send me the link? And we'll be happy to send that to you. But this is what actually triggers us to send the transcripts, get the letters going, school profile, and all of the different supporting information that students need in order to apply to the school. So one thing to note about sending transcripts, something that some schools have been doing in the last couple of years is asking students to complete what's called a SRAR, which is like essentially the student actually has to like type into the college app their all of their tests, all of their scores, their grades, and classes. If a school requires that, then they require it. And, it's kind of a drag because it takes a lot of time. But that's part of having a complete transcript. So even if a school requires that, we need the student to let us know that they applied to the school so that we can follow up by sending the profile and the letters and all the other things that go with part of a complete application. We have found that sometimes kids were admitted, and then they didn't actually tell us that they had applied to a school because some schools didn't require everything, and it does throw our world off a little bit because we like to be able to support and help and keep track of where kids are applying and being admitted and stuff. So we ask everybody to fill out this college application notification. Okay, so that's the final step in the application process, and students should receive a receipt that they submitted that form, and then it should not take any longer than 2 weeks to process that application. So 2 weeks sounds like a long time in our electronic world, but you'll remember that we said it could take up to 2 weeks for letters to be written. And so if the student fills out that form, then that's them letting us know, okay, I applied to U of M, and now the counselor needs to write a letter. And so, we're on the clock to make sure that we get that letter written. So whatever the final deadline is that the student wants that application to actually arrive at the school, they should back that up by 2 weeks so that they can make sure that any of the different things that take some time to pull together are have plenty of time to get done. Um, Once that first application with letters is out, the subsequent applications are real quick because it's the letter gathering that takes some time. Just something to consider as you're sort of figuring out how all this will work in relation to the other things that make our lives so busy, like homecoming and football and, plays and shows and all of those things that make our life fun but busy. Everything that you are asking your kids to do is tracked in Naviance. So we track that, yeah, request has been made. We track that the transcript has been sent out, that the letters have been sent out, and you or the student can just log in and see all of that from your end. So if students see that some time has passed and it doesn't look like it's been sent out, they should come talk to their counselor because we'll definitely want to make sure that nothing has slipped through the cracks and everything is going smoothly. And we wait. And so this is pretty old school to get the paper applications, but just recognizing that it takes some time. And this is a really, really nerve-wracking time for families because it feels like there's nothing that they can do. But really, like, this is where we encourage kids, like, now just do your best senior stuff, continue to work hard in school, continue to, do the things that make you a successful, student and a happy person so that when the next thing comes up, you'll be ready to face it. So that next thing might be a deferral. It might be where they say, gosh, you look interesting, but I'm not sure that we necessarily are ready to say yes yet. And we're going to put you into the next round of decisions. And so that student that has continued to keep their grades up, to stay in the game, and to work hard will be ready to send their next semester transcripts when that comes through. Send the follow-up letter that says, yes, I'm still interested, please consider me. So a lot of schools will ask for mid-year transcripts. Those are after the first semester of senior year. And we will have another link for kids to fill out to say, yes, I'd still like you to please send my mid-year transcripts to these 3 schools or whatever the case may be. And then all schools will definitely need final transcripts to prove that the student actually did graduate. And students will request that to the school that they end up going to by completing their senior survey at the end of the year. So those are the ways that we can continue to support the student to make sure that they are landing exactly where they want to be at the school that they want to go to next year. Okay, so just as a reminder, and we tell this to kids, like, when do colleges actually start looking at their application? Sometimes kids say, gosh, I put my application in back at the end of August, and this is taking forever. But the colleges are not even going to start looking at the student's application until it is entirely complete. So complete can mean different things for different schools. There's probably a checklist on the school's website that says what is part of it. So it's going to be definitely be the college application. And if there's a fee, they need to have that. It might be a counselor recommendation form or a letter. So, it depends on the school whether that's something that they require. We know if when the student tells us we applied to a school, they say, I applied to Grand Valley, counselors will be able to look at that and say, okay, that school doesn't need a letter from me. Or if they apply to a school that does need a letter, we'll be able to look at that school and say, okay, Michigan, yep, we're gonna write a letter for that one. So it really kind of depends on the school, whether it needs that counselor recommendation form. Most colleges will need an official high school transcript, and that Google form is going to be the way that will get sent out. Some schools may require an official test score. So, for example, definitely there's, schools, a lot of the schools in the South are starting to return to test required and not test optional. But it depends on what the student has chosen if they are applying to schools that require test scores. And then if they require a teacher recommendation, that also has to be in the mix. So all of these things have to be on file with the student, for the school, and before the colleges are going to start looking at their, assessing their application for admission. Okay, so what we always try to remind students when they're picking out their list of schools that they're going to be applying to, we want them to diversify the challenge level of the schools that they'll be applying to. So having some likely schools, another name, a little less beautiful you might consider this like a backup school. So I hope that every student has schools that they're applying to that they feel very confident they're going to get into, and that they would still be happy going to that school. It's not their first choice, maybe, or maybe it is, but they need to make sure that that's an actual reasonable option for them to attend. They may have some target schools. So these are like schools that they're in the range. It looks like there's a good probability that they could get in, but it's not a no-brainer, so to speak, right? So it seems like this is sort of on that range of like, could very well be that you're going to be getting into that school. Your grade point average, your SAT are on par with the average admit rate for the school. And then, of course, we're all familiar with the Reach school. So those are usually highly competitive schools, but it's schools where the likelihood of getting into that school is not sure. Like it could be like it's a reasonable possibility. Some guidelines that we offer there is it might be 0.2 of a point or further below the school's average admit. So it's not an easy peasy year in. With an ACT, it would be maybe 2 points below the average admit. We did not come up with a number for the SAT on that, so I'll have to look on that. And then any school with an admit rate below 20%, it's never a gimme, because those are really selective and competitive schools. And so it's always a good idea to make sure that you have backups. And we just don't want a student to have all of their eggs in one basket. So we tell them diversify their options. So graphic courtesy of Jennifer Vick. I love that one. Okay. When students are writing their essays, this is actually taken on more importance with the change in standardized testing policy. Because now if a student is not going in with a standardized test score, that essay becomes even more important. And students are working on these essays in their junior English class. And, when we asked kids last Friday, how many people have a pretty good draft on their senior essay, most kids had their hands raised. And when we asked how many people are using one from their junior English class, many kids had their hands raised. So they should have a good start on what that essay is. And because this is something that they've been working on in class, we don't go through and try and reteach that. But just in a nutshell, we just say, write a serious essay from the bottom of your heart. Make sure and it's authentic, and make sure you're doing this in the most mature manner possible. The essay is really the opportunity for students to share who they are beyond just the numbers, right? Because they're going to see the numbers that they have with their curriculum and with their grade point average and maybe with their test scores, but they may not get a real good sense of like the person that they are. And this essay is the great opportunity to really give some depth to their application so that they can give the colleges more of a sense of what they bring to this campus. Okay, community college. So the main thing that we want to make sure that every family is aware of is that community colleges are now free with the community college guarantee, which is absolutely remarkable. So there's lots of different reasons that a student might choose to go to a community college. One thing that I always mention to kids is like the career you're looking for might actually be better served in a community college than in a bachelor's degree. So, oftentimes, if kids are interested in going into something that is more of like a career technical education in trades, or in some area that is a bachelor's degree is perfect. Then there's no reason to launch into a 4-year degree and pay 3 times as much. So, actually much more than that since it's free. Oftentimes kids are not quite sure what their next step is. They're still trying to sort out what that college is going to mean for them, or what career might mean for them. And so, getting those basic classes that are going to transfer out of the way just makes so much sense while they start to refine what it is they're looking for. I had a conversation with a student last week. And I'm only mentioning this because she didn't realize it. And it was one of those things that was sort of a surprise to me. And that I explained to her, if you go to a community college for 2 years, when you transfer to a 4-year college, chances are you come in as a junior. It's not like this time is just more high school. It really does cut out the time that you take at college. And explaining to her that if it's important to you that you have that 4-year degree and that makes sense for your career, then that's the degree they're looking at where you graduated from. They're not going to ask future employers, or future education is not going to need to know that you started at a community college if that's not something that is important to you. Also, some kids were just later to mature with college or with high school, and the grades that they got are a bit challenging to overcome right now, and they kind of need a fresh start. So, taking a year at a community college and using those grades, the colleges that they transfer to are not going to look at their high school grades after they've got those college grades. It's really going to be a nice fresh start for them. So if they were a little slower to mature and they're now kind of finding their feet, this is a great opportunity for them to be able to transfer college grades and leave high school in the past. Okay, so timeline considerations. Really, like the thing that really can add time to the process is the letters. So, working kind of backwards from when a student wants to make sure they have that application finally at whatever school they're applying to. If that application needs letters, they should back that up 2 weeks. So, for clarification, because we have so many kids that apply to Michigan State, it's important to realize that Michigan State does not need letters. So, that is actually a pretty swift application to process, because they won't actually even read any letters of recommendation from any teachers or counselors. There's not even an opportunity to upload this. So, thinking about how that time works with letters and adding on a couple of weeks if the student knows that those letters need to be part of that application package. Early action versus early decision. So, early action is just a date that the colleges say, some colleges will say, if you get your application into us by this date, then we promise to tell you earlier what our decision is about your admission. So the big two that we have on this are Michigan and Michigan State. Both of them have early action dates of November 1st. You can see how that October 15th date is significant because if they want to get in for that early action, then they definitely want to make sure that they get everything wrapped up by October 15th, just to allow for that couple of weeks of processing. More so with Michigan than Michigan State because Michigan State doesn't require letters. So early action is an advantage for student because if you can think about it as like your econ graph, like you just have more availability there. The supply of seats is higher, and so as that supply gets smaller because more seats are being offered to students, then that's definitely going to push that demand up. Early action is an advantage for kids because they find out early and there's more availability. There is no commitment with early action. So if a student is admitted to a school early action, that they aren't required to attend that school, they can apply to as many schools early action as they want to. By contrast, early decision is similar insofar as like you have to apply by a specific date for schools that offer early decision. But if a student applies early decision to a school, then they are actually committing to attend that school if they are admitted. So you can imagine that, if you are applying to a school early decision with that commitment in mind, you could only do that to one school. You can't apply early decision to multiple schools because you can only promise that you'll attend to one school. The early decision, because you have that commitment factor, it does end up impacting any sort of negotiation or decision making that you have about your choice to actually attend. Students that apply early decision actually have to have a contract signed by their counselor and their teacher and themselves that says, we all understand what the terms are. If you apply to this school, you're only applying to one school early decision and you will attend. So with all of those caveats, you wonder what is the benefit here for a student applying early decision? And I'll tell you that the admission is just ever so slightly a little bit lower standard. And so for a kid that's on the bubble with a reach school, then it might be worth considering trying to move the odds in your favor a bit by applying early decision to a school. Not every school does early decision. There are very few schools actually in our state that do for early decision. I believe that Kalamazoo College has an early decision or ED option. But like Michigan will do early action, but not early decision. So that requires a little bit of research on your end. And we are happy to, address any questions that you might have. Okay, the significance of November 1st, I've already told you that many schools are early action, including U of M. And we only mention that because we get so many kids applying to that school. It really will improve your opportunities for admission by applying November 1st. U of M will promise to tell you by the end of January a decision. Now, that decision might be deferred to the next round, but still it is to the advantage of the student to apply November 1st early. And then what we always just tell kids is if you have a school that has a January 1 deadline, it might be what sometimes they're called a regular decision, January 1, then they really got to make sure that when they're considering that 2-week delay of what it takes to get their application out, they give 2 weeks from when we get out of school for winter break because they shouldn't count on people writing letters over winter break. So back that date up a couple of weeks from when we get out of school for winter break. Okay, we have lots of students that will be interested in playing NCAA sports at a Division One or two level. If it's Division three, then there's nothing to worry about because they're not going to get any sports scholarships at a Division three. But Division One and two do have the opportunity for sports scholarships, and so the student has to be eligible for NCAA freshman eligibility. So there's a link here to kind of look at the standards with that. They do have minimum levels of ACT or SAT scores. They do have curriculum things where they say, the student has to have X number of English, math, science, and social studies classes. And also, these classes all have to qualify as NCAA courses. We always just let kids know if they're an athlete and they're interested in playing Division One sports. They should not count film lit as an English class. They should see their counselor as soon as possible so we can make sure to build in an additional or a different English class instead of film lit if they're looking to qualify for Division One sports, because for whatever reason, NCAA did not count that as an English course for us. But any of that stuff, students can talk to their counselor and get some help on that. We're happy to walk them through. I'm actually surprised by the number of kids that will choose to do a gap year after high school. And sometimes kids need a break and to take a minute and catch their breath and figure out where they're going to go next. A gap year is not a year where students are in any sort of school at all. It just means that they're taking a year maybe to do service, or maybe they're going to work, or maybe they're going to do some volunteer work. Maybe they're going to travel. There's lots of different reasons why a student might choose to do a gap year. We're happy to share resources and information about how to look into some different programs. AmeriCorps is a great program. If you're not familiar with it, it's sort of like Peace Corps for the stateside, right? Just in the United States. Students can do work and they get paid, but not a lot. And they work for a year, and then they launch back into their school if they choose to do that. Oftentimes, if a student is accepted to a school, they can defer it for a year as long as they promise not to take any college classes. So again, just kind of throwing it out there to people that might be interested. There are opportunities for a gap year for doing lots of different things if a student is interested. Talk to your counselor. We're happy to talk it through. Oh, it's not this. Yep, that's another great Jennifer Vick graphic. It is not laying on a couch in your parents' basement for a year. We really don't want any of that happening. We want kids to be actively involved in something, but finding their thing is the question. That's a good one. Okay. For financial aid, we're not going to go into an in-depth discussion of financial aid, but I do have a link here to a presentation we did called Financing Education Beyond High School. There's also links here for, different presentations and supplemental resources that might be helpful. So the FAFSA is still finding its feet. It is opening up on December 1st. You can do before that your FSA ID, which is really just creating an electronic signature so that when the FAFSA does open, you can sign it. Both your parent and students need to create an FSA ID. And I do have a link to the FAFSA worksheet so you can see what kind of questions they'll be asking on the FAFSA. And scholarships it's not too early to start searching for scholarships. So I'll share scholarship information as well. So just a word about the FAFSA. We encourage everybody to do the FAFSA because the state has created incentives like scholarships that are just linked to kids completing the FAFSA or families completing the FAFSA. And there are things that are merit-based. There are things that are need-based. I'm happy to talk it through with more detail, but there's no commitment when a student does the FAFSA. It's just an opportunity to find some more money. Some colleges, as long as a student does a FAFSA and that shows that they're looking for money, has a minimum level of merit aid that they offer just based on completing it. So you don't really know until you try, and I think it's a great idea for everybody to complete it. So I have a link here to financial aid and scholarship information, and I encourage kids to get started looking for scholarships, even though they don't know where they're going to end up being. Right now, if they end up winning a scholarship, they'll just say when you decide on what school you're going to go to, you just report that, and then the scholarship agency will send that money to that school. There's lots of different online search engines. I have an annotated list so you can decide what will be helpful in terms of like looking for different scholarships. There's several. One of my favorite is Going Merry. I think that's a great one that you complete sort of a generic questionnaire, and then it's just searching the web for you for scholarships that are a good fit. And some of them, they'll actually fill out a lot of the scholarship information for the student. So that's a good option for, and they'll just remind you every month, here's some new scholarships that, fit your profile. Maybe take a look at them. Check Naviance. Always have different scholarship search engines on there. Also, like, don't discount a lot of the smaller groups that have smaller amounts of money, but those small money adds up. So it might be affiliated with a parent's business that they're working with, or religious organizations. Vocational interests, for example, like there might be like a community, future engineers of Polish descent. I really have seen that scholarship. So community nonprofits like the Tall People's Club of Detroit, not kidding. You can apply if you fit their category for tall people. So there's all different sort of scholarships that are out there that kids can apply to. One that we have been posting lately is the Peanut Butter and Jelly Scholarship, which is designed for kids that are average kids. They're not looking for the highest GPA. They're not looking for high financial needs. So that's an interesting one out there. So there's lots of different scholarships. It's really just about searching. Okay. And then just a reminder, and again, probably, more to kids than adults, but like never pay money to get money because really what these scams will do is say, we guarantee to show you the opportunity of, $30,000 in scholarship money. And really, it's just them doing the digging that I'm showing you to do right here. And you still need to apply, and you still need to actually get the scholarships. So it's always a scam if they say, give me some money and we'll find the scholarships for you. Also, unreasonable debt. Like we always tell kids, like, yes, of course, education can be good debt, but not too much debt, right? Because you can get to a tipping point where you've actually done more harm than good in terms of that investment. And so we have a little debt calculator there that may be helpful for people to get a sense of like, well, I'm looking at a career that will pay roughly this amount of money, and how much debt can I reasonably go into to pay that off in good measure. And then, I feel like the credit cards maybe aren't hitting kids quite as much nowadays as they did back when we were students, but credit cards are like vultures trying to get kids to, give them a blanket, and then, they can start running up a credit card. And also student loans. I don't know if you have these stories from your friends too, but like I had friends that, they ended up qualifying for, $10,000 in student loans. They really only needed two, and then they went on spring break. So I like always tell kids, just because, you qualify for $10,000 in student loans doesn't mean you have to take all $10,000, right? Like you can just take what you need. And you can, don't have to, it doesn't have to be the full amount. So, ideas about money, like now is a time where it's really important that kids start to wrap their head around what is good financial sense. This is big money, so it's a good time to talk about it. Okay, that's it. So I hope that this has been helpful for you. And let's see what else to say. I think if you have any questions, I'm happy to address questions, or any questions that people might have. Otherwise, thanks for coming tonight. And, we'll be here for the long haul. So just come see us when you need it. Okay, you want to ask a question? I'm happy to answer it.
Beth, can you hear me?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
So we might have missed this, and you might have mentioned it already. When you apply, you're waiting for transcripts and stuff. If you apply and then, is that meeting that deadline, the date you apply, and then the transcripts come later?
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. So the deadline is when everything is, well, let me think that through. No, if you are applying to the college, it is when you submit. So for that November 1st deadline, you want to make sure you submit it by the November 1st. The student submits it by November 1st. Does that make sense?
It does. Thanks.
Okay, good. Any other questions?
Hi, just
Yeah.
really quickly, please.
Yep.
You probably already mentioned it, and I didn't check my email today yet on this, but did you send out the slides already?
Not yet. So I'm
Okay.
going to put the slides on the Counseling Center website. I'll probably do that tomorrow. So I'll put both the presentation and the slides on there.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate it.
No problem. Happy to help. I can't tell if anybody else has a hand raised. So if there's anybody else, just feel free to pop in. All right. Well, maybe we're done, and that's good too. I hope everyone has a great evening. Thanks for coming tonight, and we'll see you soon.
All right. Thank you very much.